Yeah. See if his buddy still lives here.
Who's his buddy?
The guy he kicked off the farm. $8 grand he owed him. He got his money that way, but let's see if he's kicked us off the place. There ain't nothing.
Well, he said I'm going to go to the door and see if so.
Yeah, that's the old barn. This is pretty just. Well, we kicked off.
Is it okay if we snap a few pictures? Yeah, somebody named Mike Klein. I doesn't mean anything to me.
Oh,
Klein.
doesn't have it anymore, huh?
Well,
No.
Klein was an old family name.
Hey, there's some of my relation.
Could be
Well, I
relatives.
didn't
even think about that. Sure.
Yeah,
Could be relation.
they gotta be, because
Now,
all the Kleins.
Yeah, he rents it.
Oh,
But
he rents
There are
it.
Kleins that aren't related too. But
There's not very many.
Well, there are different spellings of Klein, too.
You know how that different spelling came about? One of the
Or handwriting.
no, one of my it'd be my great uncles. It was my grandmother's brother, her siblings. When one of them started to school, well, I think Grandma spelled hers with a C. And when this kid started to school, he said he's like in kindergarten, and he said his name was Klein, and the teacher wrote it down with a K. And that's how he learned it, and that's the way he did it, and that's how he became the kind of
Is
Klein
that
with a K.
right?
Yeah.
yeah, and
No.
there's also K-L-E-I-N spelling around.
Oh, is there?
Yeah,
Around here?
probably all related back someplace.
Now, what is this old building? Did Dad build that?
I don't remember.
Was that the pole barn he built with Merle when he was here? Do you know?
Couldn't tell you.
I'd say
I
one
know we
thing-
didn't have anything to do with the metal.
When we moved here, there was nothing on this side.
No, an old chicken house. Old chicken.
I wonder if my corn crib is still down there.
I didn't see any corn trees.
Now, you guys moved here when you were like 12, 13,
Yeah,
and 14.
somewhere around that.
Somewhere in there.
Don was freshman in high school, and I was in
Oh, you want
7th, 6th, 7th.
you wanted me to tell the story about moving here?
Moving, yeah.
Come here,
Well, is
Paul or Tom,
Is
Mary.
Mike Klein in there? Well, I'm
Pardon?
going to talk to him before we leave,
Yeah.
see if we're related.
When we moved here, and I don't know if you guys even know this, you probably do, but unfortunately, I never told Dad about it. I should have when I was old enough not to get beat on for. When we moved here, you know, I got the job of driving the tractor, the old farm all regular from Tama to Malcom.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah, and
You were
You
probably
drove that
mad
thing?
about it at the time.
You drove
no?
that thing from Tama
Yeah,
at 5
with-
miles an hour?
with a four-wheel. Well, I got a little gain on the hills. And that's the story. With a rack and stuff on it behind it. And no, I got out south of Tama on a little slope, and I don't know how I knew this, but somehow I knew that I tried it or learned or whatever, but I put the tractor out of gear and it picked up a little speed going downhill, and that felt pretty good, nice breeze. So got the next hill, and I did it again, and got further down there, and there's some pretty good hills down there.
Yeah.
I got that thing out of gear, and I started rolling, and I began to get scared, but I didn't know what to do. But all I had was hand brakes, one on each side. You had to let go of the steering wheel to use them. I couldn't get it back in gear. The rack's back there going like this, and the tractor's going like this because those wheels aren't balanced. And I rode it down because that's the only thing I knew how to do.
You never told Dad about it.
I think probably I got up about 35 miles an hour going down that hill, I'm guessing.
That's a little faster than our regular was designed for, well, especially in those well-done wheels, because
Oh, yeah,
I don't
they
imagine
weren't-
they
they-
used
yeah,
any
they
lathe
weren't
to true
balanced
them
at
up.
all.
They took a torch and cut off
Yeah.
the
I
steel wheels and welded the.
I often make the statement that I should have not lived to grow up. Many different incidents, but
That's what Dean Douglas was saying to me this morning. He said, hell, Tom, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself. Well, do you remember when we had the hay baler?
yeah.
You and I and Frank?
Yeah.
And we'd be driving from one site to another, and it got kind of boring, you know, so we used to play this game. We'd have the tractor and the baler and a hay rack behind it, maybe two, I don't know, but one of us would stand back on the hay rack, and then the guy who was driving would do this and try to throw you off. And I remember Frank was on the rack one time, and he was smoking a cigarette, and whoever was driving got a good one and flipped Frank off in the ditch, and he rolled over about 3 times, got up out of the ditch just madder than hell. He still had that cigarette sticking out of his mouth.
I don't remember that much. I almost don't remember, but that was our game. See if we could flip
See
them
who
off.
we
with
can
it.
flip off, yeah.
You remember when we bundled up a nest of bumblebees out at
Oh.
Hawkins Hawkins kid, but I don't know what the parents' name
It was on the old 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Hawkins
yeah.
kid, yeah, that was
Frank was driving, and you and I were sitting on the back of the baler, and all of a sudden we were up going like this. Bumblebees coming out of those bales of hay, and they brought us lunch, and they were waiting up there, and we finally got it, settled down and got back on, rode up there and had some lunch, and these folks said, "We thought you guys were having a fight down there."
I remember Bob Sutphin telling me about Dean Hawkins. One of them went to the Marine Corps with you guys, and he said, well, he didn't know what he was going to do when he got out. His sister's brothers had a little truck line. He might go to work for them. His sister was a Manat.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Because
right.
wasn't
a little truck line.
Yeah.
was his sister, that old guy that she was married to was quite a bit older than her, and they had a little girl about 5, and then
Oh, okay.
or maybe that was that her sister, or I don't know, but anyway,
Well, I don't think his sister would have been a Manat.
his
Maybe
aunt
it
or
mi-
somebody, he was
maybe-
connected to the Manats.
Okay.
Because that's who his,
Well, maybe that was her husband was a Manat.
maybe his mother was a
Okay.
Manat before he was, some
I
way
don't
he was
know.
connected
Okay.
to the Manats, and or maybe his sister, I know his sister was married to one of the Manats.
Oh, okay.
I remember when we had that baler, sometimes we would work for farmers that didn't appreciate us too much. And I was the one.
Hey, let's go over and talk to this
Okay.
guy.
Okay.
I was the one that did all the. I was the one that did all the tying, and I wanted to get some of those guys that didn't like it, put a kink in the wire. They,
Another 4 or 5.
Gonna win.
there was a corn crib down there that had the marks on the side of it where I learned to drive the tractor, and I put the spreader through. The north spreader out in front, the loader, I ran it right through the side.
There is the corn kid behind the barn then, is there? Another building back there?
I don't believe so.
Okay, they're all gone.
Okay, well, nice chatting with
Thanks.
you.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Thanks a lot.
sorry if we're.
Put that on the camera.
No.
Yeah. it
Yeah.
doesn't
You're on.
Yeah, I got
You're
a
on.
story about that.
matter. Okay.
We had this. Oh, we got to get out of the way here. When we moved here, there's kind of a lot of land over on that side, kind of a gully that wasn't really farmable. It was too wet, and it was pretty deep, and Dad would like to got it filled up, and it didn't.
You want a quick group shot before I leave?
No, we're all
No, we're fine.
But
We had an opportunity because the city of Malcom had lost their dump, and they needed a new place to dump, and Dad said, went to city council and said, if you'll put a gate in out here, you can make it the city dump, and we'll just let people come in and dump there. So they filled that whole gully up with city dump. Now, you couldn't do that these days, but back then you could. And I remember one day we were out there milking in the barn, looked out. There's no words that we could hear. I mean, obviously there's some words going on, but there's a couple of women out there picking through the dump. And you saw one of them, she bent over and picked something up. She faced the other one. She went like this, and then like this, and like this with it. couldn't hear a word, but you knew what, hey, look at what I found. Boy, it's just the right size. I'm going to keep it.
wow. So you had cows here,
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and what else?
Pigs,
Pigs, chickens,
and chickens. Never had sheep. Never had
goats,
goats or.
cows,
we
pigs,
had
and
milk
chickens.
cows. Dad milked like 10 or 12 cows, I think, was the most he ever
We had a milking machine.
Had a
man.
milking machine, yeah.
Yeah.
And we
At
had
one time. We started without one.
It's too bad the old house isn't here. With the one, do you remember the old house?
This is the only house I remember.
This is the house you remember? Well, we had the old house that was originally built here. And this is when it goes back to when Ike and Finn farmed the place back.
When Dad's
His great uncle.
William is the one that built the house when he come out from
Yeah.
Vermont.
Okay, no, let's talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Who started the house and how Grandpa got it? So I can Finn.
No,
Well,
no.
our our grandfather, right?
Our grandfather Clark probably come out and found the farm. He lived in Vermont, Beecham, Vermont, with his father was named William Varnum. And then he bought the farm and he went back to Vermont and loaded everything up and the family came out.
This
William Varnum and
this
his
was like what year?
1867,
Yeah.
probably late 1860s. And we figure, we don't have any proof, but we figure because that was the mode of transportation, they probably rented a railroad boxcar, loaded everything, all the furnishings, the family, everybody lived animals and everybody lived in that boxcar coming across country because that was the best mode of transportation in the late 1860s. Now, there's no proof on that, but that's probably the way they did it. And the farm was in the Varnum name from somewhere around 1860. Don has all the records. Let's see. The state of Iowa owned it. They sold it to this man. This man sold it to William Varnum. So the only two people before that was France, United States government, or the Indians, France, United States government, and the state of Iowa. So we were only about the fifth, our family. And it stayed in the Varnum family from 1867, say, till when we you sell it, 1997, 98?
No, it left.
Oh, twice it got out of the
Alma
family.
Chapman owned it. Dad inherited it from her.
Yeah,
And the
twice.
Fishers owned it. They got it during
Yeah,
the
twice it
Depression.
went out of the family. And both times it went out of the family, it went into foreclosure. And somebody, once was when, during the Depression, when Alma Chapman bought it for a tax sale. And the second time when his dad sold it to Merle.
Yeah.
And it went into foreclosure. So it only went out of the Varnum family twice, and both times it went into foreclosure, and the Varnum family picked it back up again. So kind of, till Don, well, Don didn't sell it. Don negotiated, us three boys, so boys, obviously.
I don't know how much tape you got left there, but or disc space or whatever.
I
but
got plenty.
we got to go back and talk about Uncle Ike and Finn when they owned it now. This was our grandfather's brothers, our great uncles, and they came out then. Somehow they ended up with it, and they were farming. I think they bought it from the rest of the family or something, finagle their way out of it or something. But they farmed it, and that was what land was booming, and they were buying. And as soon as they get one place bought, they'd get enough equity in it to buy another one. And they owned something like 1,800 acres around here, and they used to take trainloads of cattle to Chicago. They'd drive them into town and take them to Chicago, and our Aunt Elsie from Detroit, her and her husband came out here. She was the housekeeper, and Clark was helping around. He was a hired hand. And so one morning, these two uncles, great uncles, were bachelors, real crusty old guys. And so one morning, they're getting some cattle, getting ready to drive the cattle into town, and Aunt Elsie had breakfast made for them. She had pancakes. And they were getting ready to leave, and she said, "You can't leave yet, I've got breakfast here." And Uncle Ike says, "What do you got for breakfast?" And she said, "Pancakes." So he said, "Don't have time to cook them." So he grabbed the batter and took a big drink of it. And then he got off and rode his horse into town and drove the cows into town.
Our cousins from Michigan tell the story that there's a road a half mile down here. So Clark was going to teach Uncle Ike how to drive. So they got him in probably a Model T, but whatever, an old car. Got him in the car down at the corner, half mile. He pulled up in front here, he reared back on the steering wheel, put both feet on the floor as hard as he could, and yelled, "Whoa." The car didn't stop, and that was the only time Uncle Ike ever got in the car to drive it. He only needed one lesson, and he knew he never drove again. But the other thing about him, he was probably, before Elsie got here, he probably changed his underwear once a year if he needed it or not. So she come out here and said, "Mr. Varnum, you're going to take a bath every Saturday night." So she'd get the bath water ready, and while Clark got him undressed and got him in the bathtub, she'd grab his clothes and go wash them. So he got his bath once a week, whether he needed it or not.
The round tub,
Yeah, there was
the
one
galvanized
bathtub.
the galvanized tub, yeah.
About so deep and about this big around.
And she said he grumbled like a little baby every time he had to take a bath.
Now, you said Grandpa got this farm from Alma Chapman, but she was related, right? She
She's
was
like
a
a-
Her mother
Varnum?
was a Varnum.
Her mother was a
Some way her
Varnum.
mother was a Varnum.
Okay.
She used to go, she was a doctor, and she used to buy up foreclosed properties, tax sales, distressed property all over the country. She had land out in Washington, Seattle, Washington. I think it was underwater maybe or something like that, and land in Utah and Nebraska and this place, and all over the place. But did you ever hear how she became a doctor?
Yeah, a guy told me, her cousin, her brother was going to study to be a doctor, and he had poor eyesight, so she went along with him to read the textbooks to him. So while she was there, she decided to matriculate and study too, so she got her medical doctor, but she never practiced. The only job I know of for sure she was head warden or whatever at a girls' reformatory in Nebraska, York, Nebraska. It's where she lived up to when she died. But another story about Uncle Ike is my grandmother worked for his brother Clark before she married him. She was working in his office. He was a lawyer. And Isaac comes into Chicago and he goes down to see his brother at the office. And my grandma, of course, it was Mr. Varnum and Miss Tuttle, and he didn't feel good. Well, what's the matter? Well, I ate that potato salad. I just don't agree with me. Well, and he just brought a trainload of cattle to sell in Chicago. And, well, why did you eat the potato salad if it don't agree with you? Why didn't you eat anything else? Well, it was the cheapest thing I could buy.
Oh my.
He was a character. Everybody knew him. And Phineas, his brother, he died a lot earlier. They had a windmill right there where that pole is with the light on it. And he was up on top working on the windmill, and he fell off. The pump rod was sticking up, like that rod right there on that pump. It punctured, went right through it.
That's how he died?
Yeah.
Right here on the farm, huh?
Yeah, right
Wow.
down there.
Well, now there's something else I've heard of that story, that whoever lived across the road at that time said something about, I don't know what's going on with that old coot. He's been out there hollering all afternoon or something like that.
He was laying on the pump.
Yeah, they probably punctured clear through his
Bleeding to
abdomen or
death.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, this is probably about the same time we had the old magneto crank up phones here, you know, and everybody knew when the phone rang, you know, everybody on the line. There was like 17 people on the line out here. So I heard the story that I don't know which one it was. Let's say it was Ike. They called Ed, somebody around the corner down here, and told him that a relative had died, but he didn't get there in time to find out who the relative was. So he listened to the conversation. They still didn't know who it was. So after they hung up, he rung up Ed's ring on there, and Ed answered the phone and he says, "Hello, Ed, who's dead?"
Anyway, shall we press on?
Yeah.
Marvin's
Okay.
getting tired.
Okay.
Yep.
And
There was a little sidewalk, wasn't there? Just going right up to the front door.
Yeah, but I'm sitting on it.
You're on.
anyway, I was just a little tad. I remember when they poured the foundation for that corn crib that was down there east of the house. And also I remember the time Don was down there, and I think him and Cousin Maynard were seeing how many ears, kernels of corn they could get in their ear, and Don got one more than he should have.
That was corn or soybean. That was over George Henry's.
Was it at Henry? I thought it was down there at Grandma's place.
No, I was over George Henry's, and I don't remember who. Maybe I don't know if it was Maynard or not, but I remember there was somebody else there.
You know, they didn't have a whole lot of traffic out there on the farm. They didn't have a whole lot of traffic out there, so Marvin's ears got pretty tuned in.
Yeah,
He could hear something. And I was out there helping him make hay one day, and we were waiting for another load to come in, and we're standing up in the hay door in the barn. And Marvin says, listen. And I swear to God, 3 minutes later, here came a car over the hill, up there on the other side of where Joe Collum lived. You know? He could hear it. He must have heard it coming out of Brooklyn.
Well, his road, was only 1 mile. There's a dead end on each, or not a dead end, but a T end on each end. And there was only 2 houses on that road. And back in those days, it was not gravel; it was just a dirt road.
Yeah.
So if a car came by there, it was important.
Yeah.
Did Marvin live with Grandma Reitzler then?
Yeah, quite a while.
And that was a 2-story house when Grandma lived there, the stair steps. And after church every Sunday, I only went there once after church with them. Why, all of the sisters and brothers and brought their kids, and they met at the house, Grandma's house. And they cooked lunch for everyone. And the men would sit in the living room and on the stair steps and on the front porch and talk about the crops and all the stuff.
The men usually have a poker game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you
They
did.
love their poker games. So,
Mom was telling me about Marvin when he was a little kid. Grandma yelled, he slept upstairs above the kitchen or something. And Grandma yelled at him to get up and go to school, and he, no response. And she yelled again, and there was no response. And finally, she went up and she marched up the stairs. She said, "Now I told you to get up. Why didn't you get up?" He said, "I didn't hear you the first 2 times."
Didn't hear you first.
You know, back when the, you know, that house didn't have much of a basement under it first, and they dug a basement under there.
The slip scraper.
Yeah, a slip scraper, and there's a whole bunch of us down
What's
there.
a slip scraper?
Just a big scoop that has like handlebar handles, and you pull it with a horse or a tractor.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
you raise the handles to make it big, and if you got it full, you lower them down a little bit and slide it along until you dump it.
when you dump it, you just throw them
Throw the
forward.
handles up and it dumps. But we were down there, it was as I remember, it probably was in the middle of the morning. And we were down there in the basement. Grandma hollered down, says, "You guys ready for a beer down there?" And we all said, "Yeah." So I got a beer, and I was about 15 then. Another hour or two working along, and Grandma says, "You ready for another beer?" And we all said, "Yeah." Dad says, "You'll have pop."
But anyway, the time I was down there, we had gone, Frank and I and I don't know who else was with us, but we had bought a little dog for both grandmas, for my mother,
Little Peaky, wasn't it?
his grandma.
Tippy.
Tippy.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, yeah.
And Tippy was just a skinny little thing. And my mom's dog lived in the house with her, and she fed it all the food Mom ate. Fattest,
Greasy
roly-poly
food.
dog you ever saw. But anyway, Tippy lived on the farm, and Grandma wouldn't let Tippy in the house. We were all down there. And Tippy wanted something to eat, and came in on the porch. And Grandma saw it and took a broom and went after that dog and was swatting the behind him. I mean, coming down,
She was always yelling at him and
Yeah.
whacking at him.
Whacking.
Chasing with the broom.
and my mom's dog was just spoiled rotten.
It was about this big around and about that long.
And
Couldn't hardly
Tippy,
walk, just little skinny legs
and then
hanging
the
down.
neighbors said that one day they saw Tippy going down the road carrying his bucket that he got food in. And he was headed towards the next farm.
No kidding.
Yeah, that one of the neighbors told us that. He
Did he
said,
come back?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But apparently that neighbor gave him food and Grandma didn't. Grandma didn't, she,
You know, do you remember when she used to cook pancakes for breakfast? And they had this big old dog, this big old outside dog,
Yeah,
Chef.
Chef.
When everybody was fed, whatever batter was left, she just poured it in the
Oh, really?
skillet and cooked it up. And she'd go out and, "Yeah, Chef, yeah. Here comes this big dog running up, mouth wide open, and she flipped that big pancake out in one swoop and it's gone. He never even hit the ground.
George Henry had a dog up at his place. We lived outside the house, had a doghouse out there and
Yeah.
everything. And George was telling me that he said that dog would eat anything. He said, "You throw a head of cabbage out there and he'll eat that." Potato, tomato, anything, whatever you throw out there, he'd eat it.
tell me who George Henry.
Oh, George Henry was Mom's brother-in-law, and Rosie.
Aunt Rosie's husband.
And,
Lived right around the corner down
Right.
there.
yeah, we think John Henry, that place looked like it might be his place. There's enough junk
Well,
there.
they left everything to him, and he's the only one.
That house?
George's
George's old
George's
house, yeah.
place.
Marcy was a
Well, he
baby.
don't live there,
Oh, we don't?
no,
Does he still live in his house down the road?
as far as I know.
Did he buy down there or something, or
Yeah.
just? Oh,
I can't say he don't live there now, I don't know, but for years he lived down the road.
They
Go
have
ahead,
about
Elaine, I'm
7 or
sorry.
8
Don't worry about
kids.
it, we won't put it into
Who's
the
that?
bucket.
George Henry.
No,
George?
John,
No, they just
George.
had
Not George, the
Oh.
son, John.
Oh,
I
yeah,
got a
they
Christmas
had-
card from them, they had a half a dozen of them.
Yeah, they had about 6 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
A couple of them worked down in Montezuma, some factory. One of them was a tool maker down there.
Oh,
we went down to Aunt Rosie's and the George's when Marcy was a baby. And we were there visiting. And they had strawberries in a patch. And Marcy found out about the strawberries and she was gonna have those strawberries. And I said, no, Marcy, you stay out of the strawberries. You can't get in the strawberries. And old George Henry took her and said, Marcy, eat every strawberry you want. Walked her out there.
Now, talk about Grandpa's jobs and Grandma.
Oh.
I know Grandma taught way early on.
She was-
And then, but what Grandpa did in Tama before you moved here, and then did he?
Might want to hold on that for a minute.
Are we at the end of the tape?
Think so.
Yeah, I think that's something slow.
Good morning. Person, I have something that was Mom's while she was teaching a diary.
Really?
When she was teaching all about the kids that were in her classroom.